All right, he's known for helping restaurants recover in good times and bad. And now Chef Robert Irvine says lessons from his show, Restaurant Impossible, can be applied during this shutdown as we remake that restaurant concept. Robert Irvine joins us right now with his advice for struggling businesses and soon, we hope, to reopen restaurants. First off, Robert, what's going to be different when the restaurants do get the nod to open again?
Well, I think first of all, if you've got a big restaurant, you're going to fill a third of that. If you've got a small restaurant, you're probably going to fill half of it. The biggest problem we're going to face right now is customer or consumer confidence, number one, and number two is having to redirect all our thought process into what was is gone and what is new is brand new. New menus, new social distancing rules. What do we do in the kitchen to make the consumer feel comfortable? Is it masks? Obviously, it's masks. We already wear gloves. Are we allowing people into the kitchen? Good question. Do they want to see that you're doing things safely? Yes, they do. I think the whole world of the restaurant business and business in general is going to change. We want to feel comfortable walking into a space. Imagine this. We're going to a restaurant, somebody coughs. Oh, my goodness. It would be a nightmare. But the business owners have to start looking at forecasting. What is the new normal in business, as in seats coming in, people coming in? The revenue generation has changed completely. The model's changed. We've got to look at reducing costs. We've got to look at using social media more. We've got to entice the people, talk to suppliers. What about the food chain? How is that? Is it safe? Is it secure? There's lots of things that we need to think about moving forward.
And some might not be able to reopen with less seating. If you only have 50 tables and now you got to knock it down to 15 or 20, you might have a hard decision to make.
Yeah, I truly believe that we will have a third of our restaurants that we know and love in this country, they will be gone after this pandemic. And my job, along with what you guys are doing, is to try and stop that, trying to help them get back to business.
Right. So you want to talk about, number one, have multiple seatings. Number two, you might have to put plexiglass in between some of the booths. You got to make the kitchen like an operating room, that clean. The other thing you talk about is recasting your menu. In what respect?
Yeah. Well, listen, what we used to be able to get a hold of, we maybe not be able to get a hold of now. But also, we got to think about what is bringing customers into the door. What makes us different from the Italian restaurant 3 minutes down the road, the Chinese restaurant, whatever type of restaurant you have. I have a pub and bar in Vegas. What makes me different? I've got to really rotate that menu. It should not be as fixed. It should be smaller. It should be exciting. And what people are actually asking for. And chefs, sorry, I'm one, we have egos. We want to put the food on that represents us the best. Well, now I think that's going to change. We have to bring in business to be able to pay our rent, to be able to pay our staff, to be able to get back on board.
So, Robert, right now the government put over $350 billion to the side for small businesses, a lot of restaurants. I'm hearing a lot of blowback, gyms especially, saying if you're going to give me this money, it's got to be a grant. And number two is you can't have me spending 75% on labor. That's not my cost. My cost goes to my lease and my lighting, and now I got to buy more food because it all went bad during this month-long shutdown. What are you hearing from restaurateurs who's still leaning on you for advice?
Well, and literally, Brad, I get hundreds of calls, hundreds of emails a day. One of the biggest issues we have, obviously the rent, for sure, the lighting, all those fixed costs that we have. But remember, when we went suddenly dark, we give all our food away to whoever, like food banks and local schools, et cetera, et cetera. Now we've got to get that food back, which is money. It's going to cost me more money. Can they deliver? Yes. Is the supply chain safe, obviously? And where am I getting that money from? What about the insurance? All these things that when we walk into a restaurant and have dinner, we never think about that. But there is a lot of hidden costs, not only food and labor, insurance, lighting, all those kind of things that happen. And we've got to figure out, does that insurance change? What about if you get sick in my restaurant? I mean, come on, now we're all fearful of the coronavirus. What happens if you just get food poisoning? And it sounds really weird when I say that, but
that's a good point. Yeah,
it's a big deal.
But if you get a therapy or you get a vaccine, that could change things for you too. That would be big. On top of that, I was amazed to see on some of these insurance claims, on the back of the insurance forms, it excludes pandemics. I mean, we haven't had a pandemic since 1918, but yet the insurers were smart enough for them to put in exclusions for pandemics. So they're not writing any checks right now through all this. So the challenge is going to be great, but I think you could be smart about it and you could survive. Final thought?
Which is sad, because we paid into the insurance companies for years and years, and when we need them the most, they should be smarting up and giving up and taking care of our folks. At the end of the day, if small business comes back, which runs America, everything will start to open up. Look at the big stores, the big chains. They're having as much problems, not only restaurants, but supermarkets and everything else. They're having as much problem as what we are, except we have 11 million in the food and beverage and the hospitality industry. They're out of work right now. We got to start putting them back to work safely. I'm not a doctor. Right. I don't decide when we go back. But when we put them back, we've got to make sure that everybody is feeling confident. Right. Remember, before the pandemic, we were out 5 or 6 times a week getting food somewhere, even if it's fast food or a sit down. Now we're dining in more, obviously, because we're all at home. But when consumer confidence comes back, how many times are we going to go out? It's not going to be 5 or 6, maybe 2. Right. So we've got to make them two visits count.
Robert Irvine, thanks so much. Restaurant Rescue Restaurant Impossible is now going to be must-watch TV. Not only be entertained, we're going to learn how to navigate in this new era. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. Meanwhile, coming straight ahead, you're welcome. And meanwhile, he served in our Army. Now he's helping medical workers on the front line by volunteering to virtually tutor their kids as a professor. He joins us live now.
Welcome to Jersey Mike's. How can we help you?
4/7 on Channel 115. Stream SiriusXM free now through May 15th.
Cash-strapped airlines looking for ways to get through the economic turbulence. For United Airlines, the solution is to get back to business with international flights. Grady Trimble with our sister network, Fox Business, is live in Chicago with how the airline is preparing for takeoff as soon as next month. Grady?
Ainsley, good morning. This is normally one of the busiest airports in the country. You wouldn't know that looking around here today. When you see an airport this empty, it's hard to imagine too many people wanting to get back on planes in the coming weeks, let alone on long-haul international flights. But United is looking to add 4 long-haul flights back to its schedule as early as May 4th and May 5th. 3 of those would be to Europe, 1 of them to South America. United says it's seeing some demand at those airports at a time when air travel has decreased drastically. TSA screening 96% fewer passengers compared to the same time last year. Only 90,000 people went through TSA checkpoints on April 12th. Another way airlines are potentially looking to generate cash is by selling airline miles to their credit card partners. That would be a way to get quick cash, but we reached out to United and Delta, who the Wall Street Journal says are looking into doing that. They wouldn't comment, but they wouldn't deny it. Perhaps one reason they wouldn't take that deal is because a federal aid deal from the government could be coming as soon as today. Ainsley?
Okay. Thank you, Grady. Steve, over to you.
All right, Ainsley, thank you. He served our nation, and now one Army veteran turned professor is helping other heroes. He is volunteering to virtually tutor children of healthcare workers to ease their burden of homeschooling. That University of Utah professor and U.S. Army veteran Jake Hammock joins us right now. Professor, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thank you very much. It looks like you are safe at home. So tell us about, I think a friend of yours by the name of Jane came up with this idea. What was her theme?
Well, so it was Lauren, is a good friend of mine, and she's right now she's homeschooling for her brother and sister-in-law and her children, and she came to me asking, you know, could we really make an impactful course scenario for healthcare workers? As you're a professor right now, how can you truly do good and be relevant to what you're doing with my company of Shock Technologies? and truly give an innovative and impactful course. And so I really took that challenge, as I'm already a professor, I'm an engineer. Why not do good? Why not give back with where I can? I'm not a physician myself, but how can I give back? And so put together a short course on what we're doing, and it's been truly wondrous ever since.
Okay, so what business are you in that you are going to show children of first responders, healthcare workers, the secrets of what you have learned in your life?
Yeah, so the course of what I put together so far, it really revolves around taking water from thin air, and how can you do it, and how can you scale something of such a complex magnitude in a way that it's meaningful to children. And there's all walks of life. It's not really bound by an age group, but how can you truly take water from thin air? How can you produce power from that same system where you're taking water from thin air? How can you look at power production within any fluid motion on Earth within the environment? And so I really took that in such a way that I want to be impactful to the children, to the youth of our nation. And how can I truly be on the front lines here in this pandemic right now in the course for our healthcare providers in such a way that I can give back? How can they truly learn of a new, true science that can be applied, and they can scale this throughout their lives and really influence our future generations? So that's why I did it.
Well, Jake, it's nice that you would do that for the people on the front lines, because you've been on the front lines yourself. You were in the military for a very long time. But, during a global pandemic, a lot of people are just hunkering down, isolating in place. Why did you say to yourself, you know what, I got to do more? And particularly, I can help these children of total strangers learn something new. Yeah. And I can relate to this. To your point, Steve. When I was in the service many years ago, right now, when the healthcare workers, physicians, EMTs, medical staff, when they come to their home, they're completely burdened. They're tired. They need that time to spend with their families, their loved ones. And how can I give back? How can I give back in such a way that when they come home, they get to really value that time with their family, yet we can still provide a learning institution, learning curriculum in the background. So it's a virtual homeschool, if you will, where we can do really fun experiments. We can truly be impactful, but it really gets time back to the healthcare physicians, and I can relate to that. So it's really about time maximization while providing a learning opportunity. That's great. And before you go, Professor, if people would like to get a hold of you, what's your website or email or something? Yeah, so the website that we have is chaachtech.com, CHAACTECH.com, and I can be reached directly at jake.hammock@chaachtech.com as well, and we'd be happy to hear from everyone. All right, very good. Well, we're happy to hear from you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time today. You bet. All right. By the way, for more stories of people going the extra mile to help each other during this pandemic, log on to foxnews.com/America together right there. All right. Meanwhile, President Trump slamming the media's response to his handling of this crisis.
If I went 3 months earlier, I would have been criticized for being way too early. And I don't mind being criticized, but not when they're wrong. Senator Lindsey Graham on all of that and more coming up next.
Social distancing with the 5.
Time to go to work.
While the team are responsibly working separately.
Jasper, what do you think of the latest press conference?
They're getting used to a new routine of social distancing.
What do you guys think of the Green New Deal?
We make sure to keep the conversation going.
Hey guys, do you miss me?
Yeah.
Staying home is the best way to slow the spread of coronavirus.
At Outback Steakhouse, we're committed to serving our communities by doing what we do